Warcraft started back in 1994 as a real-time strategy game. So it was kind of this top-down fantasy game where you moved your soldiers around and fought for dominion over these lands of Azeroth.
I think it was kind of a sleeper. I think a lot of word of mouth, right? And people started getting excited about it and just went straight from War I straight into War II.
And then we created Warcraft 3. That was probably the first game that we really focused on story in addition to gameplay.
I wanted Warcraft 3 to show that the Noble Alliance wasn't always all that noble. I wanted to show that the orcs had a real depth of culture, that they were a cursed people, but they once were very great, so that Warcraft would have a little more soul, even as just a simple video game franchise, that it would have roots that could run very deep.
And then we put WoW out there, and the amount of momentum that game picked up and the amount of people that came into it, it started happening so quick that it just killed our servers. We weren't prepared for it. All of a sudden, we went from this very small company to this huge company trying to feed this machine that we had created. We've always kicked around the ideas of making movies, but I'd say about 8 years ago, we really started thinking about this.
Legendary was really excited about Warcraft. They are approaching this with a sense of responsibility to all the players out there that love Warcraft.
It's an amazing world that the folks at Blizzard created. This is arguably the most successful entertainment property in history. We spent a lot of time geeking out with them about the care and feeding that went into these characters, and I think they felt from us a genuine love for the property and wanting to tell not a good story, but a great story in the universe that they've created.
We met with a lot of folks around Hollywood and had a lot of really good discussions about how could this take shape. But we found ourselves kind of at a crossroads, like, well, maybe it's just too hard to find the right story. Maybe it's just too difficult to find the right scale of production. And one day they bring in Duncan Jones.
You're not allowed to film.
We worked hard to get the right screenplay. And quite frankly, it was Duncan Jones who came to us with what was the missing ingredient. Duncan brought the fact that if we can play either side in Warcraft, let's make sure we tell the story from the point of view of both sides.
You think you're fearsome? Orc children have pets more fearsome than you.
We are not trying to be fearsome grown-up.
He speaks our language. I mean, he already knew our characters. He knew our franchises.
Some of us still live, War Chief.
Warcraft as a universe is vast, and just working out what the film was going to be was a pretty massive task at the start of it. I wanted to make a film which worked and stood alone in its own right. And I think what makes it work is that it is a war movie that really allows the audience to empathize and understand what appears to be good people, or in Durotan's case, a good orc, to be thrown into conflict against humans who themselves seem to be good people.
We are in the business of taking audiences to new worlds and to allow them to have experiences that are relatable and emotional, and Warcraft seemed to lend itself perfectly.
It will warm you.
We were incredibly fortunate that we worked so close with Blizzard and with their concept artists to design something which works in a realistic setting, but still very much is familiar to those through the games. One of the things we were talking about is how in the game, you get this sense of a small world. You can travel across it in a fairly short period of time. So we thought it would be fun to take that aesthetic and put it into film terms.
We wanted to embrace the world. We didn't want the Warcraft Azeroth world to be a mirror image of our own.
It's been pretty extraordinary, and I hope audiences enjoy it as much as I enjoy the film that we've made.
Here we go, ready, and action!
It's hard to put into words. You spend I spent my whole adult life working on this idea, and in some ways it can be terrifying, giving it into someone else's hands. But very quickly, I came to see that all the doubts were for naught. I'm just a total fan again. And after 20 years, that's a real gift, to just see this stuff with new eyes, see something new in it. It's a very special thing.
We have an absolutely amazing cast that we're working with. Travis Fimmel for Lothar. He's a really exciting and charismatic actor. Absolutely just a natural leading man.
Action!
That tennis ball? That's my eye line. That's actually a monster. Everything on the show seems at a bigger scale and scope. We had big draft horses instead of normal horses. We had swords that are like 3 times as big as a normal sword. And tremendous stunts and a great stunt team.
Hey, Travis, I'll give you 2 beats, mate. 1,000, 2,000, bang!
I was blown away by Travis. When he walks in a room, he commands attention. And you kind of believe Travis. You know that he may pick up a sword or a battle axe, and, you know, you want that guy on your side.
Medivh.
Medivh, you are up and well.
I am. I feel restored.
The Guardian is played by Ben Foster. We're very fortunate that Ben was willing to do this movie.
The conversations that have been most enjoyable about this particular project is the concept of magic, which is, are you conduit? Is it moving through you, or are you generating it? And how to harness and what does it cost?
You have no idea the forces I contend with.
His ability to harness magic is a bit of a weight on his shoulders.
Did you see it? This demon.
This is a fun job to say, come to work and say, okay, well, how is the lightning moving through you?
It's just enjoyable to watch him work because he's always doing something interesting and bringing something to it that you weren't expecting.
Where are you going? Get these men safely back to Stormwind. You did well today.
The King, Commander Lothar, where are they?
Khadgar's played by young actor Ben Schnetzer.
From light comes darkness.
Khadgar's got a really palpable journey throughout this film. He goes through a massive learning curve in a very short period of time, and that was really exciting to me.
Have you done any,
Anything like this? Any griffin riding before in films? No. It's my first time. Just developing what's my relationship to magic, what is magic's relationship to me. It's been a challenge, but it's been really exciting. They strap these like lights to our wrists so that when we're doing magic, you can see the lights glowing my hands. This is just the coolest thing.
And action!
My army is losing a regiment a day. Our villages have been decimated.
Dominic Cooper. He's incredibly talented, and he plays a great King Lane.
This is our land, this is the kingdom, and this is the throne room that you can see behind me. That's my throne, yonder. I just thought it was a very, very exciting project to be part of. The difficulties, I suppose, were in like anything. I've been on huge, great horses. We're in studios. We've got massive amounts of armor on. The armor looks incredible, and I've just seen a shot of it on film, and it's stunning. All the costume is stunning. It's physically demanding, but that's just the nature of what this is, and you know what this is the moment you take it on, once you've seen the imagination that's behind it.
We were able to cast Paula Patton, who I think does an amazing job, both on the physical nature of the character, there's a lot of fighting, and also on the performance level of being this outsider.
You think you're fearsome? Orc children have pets more fearsome than you. This is an incredible world, and I love the fantasy of it, and I loved how complex it was. And then you had this character, Garona, who had 1 foot in the orc world and 1 foot in the human world. And I found that fascinating and scary, because I didn't know how I was quite going to play that.
Paula Patton has tremendous determination and will, and that determination that Paula has is easily translatable to this character of Garona.
She's fierce, and she's a very strong warrior, but more than that, she's vulnerable, and she's feminine, and she's starting to feel new things that she's never felt before, see new things, and that was refreshing and exciting for me.
3, 2, 1, go!
It's like any kid's dream, right? Is to be able to do things like this.
We have such a vast and interesting collection of characters. Every day throws up new challenges, and there's lots of fun. Cut.
Getting there.
That's great. I worked with a VFX supervisor, Bill Westenhofer, who was also a long-time and hardcore Warcraft player.
When you have digital characters and you have these worlds that don't really exist, you can't just go out with a camera and shoot them. So we knew we had to go to visual effects.
For Azeroth and the Alliance!
I think the variety and the depth of what we did for this film, as far as really complex environments, crowds, variety of characters, it's really a dream come true as far as a project to be able to work on.
That's the previs shot where you're looking over the gate down into the camp.
We're incredibly fortunate that we worked so close with Blizzard and with their concept artists to design something which works in a realistic setting, but still very much is familiar to those who know the world through the games.
Elwyn Forest, you could just go out to a forest and start filming, but anyone who plays the game knows that there's a certain look. Trees are just a little bigger than they would be.
There's a sense of scale, and there's the extension and addition of digital characters that all have to be added later on.
The Frost Wolves are all dead. We are on our own now.
This scene is a tour de force as far as visual effects is concerned. We have a set that's pretty decent size. We have a lot of extras, but that's only a fraction of what you'll see. We have this huge environment. This is continuation of Black Morass, so we see the rest of the orc encampment off to the side, and we see it's now burning because of the battle that's taken place. There's thousands of orcs surrounding the portal, and even the soldiers themselves we have to extend with digital human soldiers in the distance. So there's a lot of work that we have to do.
One of the things I loved about this project, beyond just the compelling character performances, was the variety of creatures that we got to create.
The Griffin is certainly the most emblematic of Warcraft creatures.
The Griffins were a very interesting challenge because you had people interacting with them directly. You had Lothar and Khadgar having to ride a Griffin. We'd build a mechanical buck that represented the saddle and could move around and articulate in just the right way, and ILM's animators would add the head, neck, and feet and wings to that and move it around and make it look like they're actually taking off.
Griffins are a really difficult combination of lion and eagle. That means they're covered in feathers. And the way we achieved feathers on this film was actually to grow them as hair, and then each feather, to create all the different parts of it, we grew hair on hair. So it was sort of a unique thing and something we hadn't really attempted before.
The griffins and the giant wolves that the orcs ride on were both hand animated, and that's really fun for animators, especially on a show that's primarily about motion capture.
One of the challenges with Frost Wolves is that they have to carry an orc. So an orc is already 500 pounds, so you have to have something that doesn't look like an elephant, but that could actually comfortably fit the scale of an orc riding them.
They are huge, powerful beasts. We kind of made it a status symbol. There are certain orcs who are able to ride the wolves, who have the wolves.
Duncan and I went back and forth and found a posture that looked like they had the musculature to support an orc, but weren't so big as to be out of scale with the humans that were next to them.
I'll do it. Back off.
So what's about to happen?
Fighting a golem again.
Hey, over here! Clayface!
The golem was an interesting one because Duncan had seen a sculpture that a young sculptor had done in Eastern Europe, and it was almost exactly as Duncan wanted the golem to be. So we contacted that guy and basically paid him for his design. His little model was maybe only about this big, and here it is 3 or 4 months later, 16 feet high.
As Mediva's sculpting the golem, it's all a practical thing on set, and then the minute it starts moving is when we take over.
A lot of the success of believing a character is this mountain of tiny details. In every movie, there's a moment where your character comes to life, and it's a little like they're being born. That's hugely satisfying.
Cut, that was great.
The incredible wizards at ILM are really pushing the envelope.
We're so fortunate that we have them helping us translate Warcraft to the screen.
I was incredibly fortunate to get to work with some heads of department that I could only have ever worked with on a film of this scale.
Do you want to stand up so I can fix it?
I think so.
Maya's Rubio, who did our wardrobe, had done Apocalypto, had done Avatar. Her work is superb.
Hello, how are you? We had guidelines from Blizzard, important iconic lines, emblems, colors, characters. But to create the costumes, you have to use a little bit of anthropology and consider what are your social tiers. So in order to make that acceptable, you have to create the whole spectrum from the monarchs to Shantytown. We have made 650 costumes. We had 6 cutters, 2 top-of-the-line assistant designers, the best costume supervisor. At one point, we had 70 people. We pulled fabrics from Germany, France, Mexico, India, China, Thailand, everywhere. It was completely epic.
Ready and action!
Lothar has the kind of maverick feel to it. His armor is non-flashy whatsoever. This makes him even more interesting.
That stuff's fun. You're like a little kid playing dress up. I think it's a real world that nobody's seen before.
His civilian clothes are very unique, but not flashy.
Action!
I've been researching ever since I felt the presence of the film.
Khadgar is somebody that lives out of his duffel bag. He travels light. He never changes because this character is consistent. It was important to give him that stability.
At first, I was kind of like, I don't get any armor, I don't get a sword, you know, and then after day 1 or 2 of shooting, realizing what wearing armor and wielding a sword entailed, so I was like, I'll take the robes, I'll take the PJs, just bring it.
For the wardrobe of King Lane, my producers were very understanding of the need to find very exclusive, great fabrics. Beautiful, luxurious, and interesting, hand-finished costumes that you can actually see on screen. He is really the most luscious character.
What do you suggest? The costumes are incredible. They have to be much larger than life. There's all sorts of dynamics to it that just take it to another level. It's physically demanding.
With the Guardians' help, we will destroy this gate.
You can't just throw it on and walk into scenes. You just have to be fit. Everything is exaggerated and much bigger in this.
And action!
Medivh was the guardian of Dalaran. His cape of raven feathers catch the light in a beautiful, beautiful way. To make the feather cape, we needed 5 weeks to manufacture because they were sewn together one by one. You have to organize your feathers to place them so they catch the light in the same way. That luscious, oily hue is almost like an oil spill. It has to give you some kind of meditation into the costumes since they come from a monastery of Dalaran.
It's hard not to feel somewhat empowered when you're wearing a cloak of feathers. It's like a giant boa.
For Lady Taria, we needed fabrics that would catch light, like a precious jewel that is really authentic. We got the best of the best, and they were made especially for us.
We've had peace in these lands for many years now.
Lady Taria is a strong character. This is a woman that wears pants. We incorporated her pants as a sign of strength.
Was King Lane wrong to believe in you?
Myas has created the most amazing costume. Each and every dress just more beautiful than the last. It's extraordinary. Maya, she's such a genius.
I like to see more of this than this. Okay.
Her whole team, you know, spending hours and hours and days on the most intricate details. and it's just such a pleasure.
Or take prisoner for the gate. Learn from them.
Garona is the strongest will. She was an outcast by her own people because she was a hybrid. The first costume she has is pieces of spoils from battles. They're made from tiny pieces of what is left over from other people's battle, not her battle.
Maya's did a magnificent job. When you wear your costume, you start to become that person.
And she had to be given the human armor that she despised.
When I'm wearing this human army look, it's tough because it's actually really heavy. But it's good. It just kind of deepens your character for me and makes me feel it more.
Only one fabric.
Right.
Look at how it reacts to light.
Yeah.
Different. It creates so many hues.
Maya was able to get right into the brains of the teams at Blizzard who designed the original game costumes and find a way to realize them in a way that felt realistic, but still held on to that style that we know from the game.
I love my job.
The #1 challenge in making Warcraft was getting the orcs right.
Yes, that's cool.
To deliver characters that the audience could really empathize and understand.
They wouldn't follow him if they could see what he has become. And then I'll show them.
We're very fortunate that we were working on this film at a time where the bleeding edge of this technology allows computer-generated characters to really hold the screen in close-ups and extreme close-ups and have that empathy.
And how will the great Duratan name his son?
A son?
We've got Bill Westenhofer, who's won a couple of Academy Awards for VFX. We have Jeff White, who upped the ante with CG characters.
Right from the beginning, I think there was an acknowledgement that to stay true to the Blizzard aesthetic of these huge characters, we were going to have to do the orcs digitally. But just as important in that was that they be great characters. They shouldn't make you bump from the movie. So they were going to have to be very realistic. They were going to have great performances. And that, to us, was the most important thing. The body motion capture was pretty traditional for us, but I think we really broke some ground with the faces.
The new territory for us was the level of detail in the facial capture. We've got these really tight close-ups on some of our orc characters, and there's a whole level of fine detail that you ordinarily don't get with CG characters because facial capture technology prior to this just really wasn't up to the task. And now we're getting these tiny little micro movements of skin around the eyes and in the eyebrows and around the mouth to get all that fine detail. I think really pushed these shots up to the next level for sure.
The first shot that we delivered was a close-up on Duratan. Very subtle, and yet there were important moments there to bring the character to life.
I can feel your eyes.
It was really our way to show all the filmmakers, yes, we can pull these orcs off. And when they first saw it, they were floored.
To see just how much of all your expressions and everything, we just want to make sure we capture everything.
It is good to see trees again.
Jeff White from ILM and Bill Westenhofer came in with a 30-second clip. They put it on the screen, and I saw an orc, and he was as flesh and blood as you are, as anybody is.
You could see his eyes responding, just these little subtle movements, and it felt alive. That was just an amazing experience.
It's powerful magic.
I came away from that thinking, they've done it right. I just knew that this was gonna be great.
Hair is one of the most difficult things you can do in computer graphics, and we actually built one tool that we called Haircraft that was custom software specifically all about grooming hair. And it was a major development process, and a lot of it driven by the complexity of the hairstyles.
In creating the orcs, we're creating characters, each of whom has to carry emotional moments in the film. This is not like we're just having monsters who just need to be scary. There is real nuance to what these characters have to be able to do. Having said that, we knew that there were certain actors who had had the experience of doing motion capture and who understood what that meant and how you do it. Toby Kebbell is definitely someone who we knew that we wanted involved.
I am Duratan.
son of Garad,
chieftain of the Frostwolf clan.
The beauty of motion capture is what you end up looking at is the phenomenal artwork of the artist. But the essence of Duratan, the way he thinks, the way he moves, that's my performance.
Go, der book me mat.
Finding Duratan's voice was a challenge for me, and I wanted him to feel very much like a person who ponders before he speaks. But his character, his body language, the way he speaks, was like a person who spent a lot of time on his own, tracking and hunting and doing those kinds of things. That was important to me.
It was always meat, always life.
You don't think it's strange that we lost our home when Gul'dan came to power?
One orc cannot kill a world, Duratan.
Rob is a world-ranked World of Warcraft player, so he has spent more time playing this game than pretty much anyone involved.
When an actor gets a job, usually they then start researching that character. And they usually do that for a few months before they start filming. But for me, it's been 10 years of researching this world and this particular game and this particular character. And nobody in the history of film has been more researched and willing to play a character than I think I was willing to play this one and dying to play this one. So for me, there was this enormous pressure on myself to do this right.
Gods are strange creatures.
You think the helmet with the cameras and the wires and the grey suit and the no props and all this thing would be difficult to deal with, but in this case you're allowed to use your imagination, and that in itself is a gift that you don't get in many places.
What happened? I was wrong.
Gul'dan's foul magic is destroying us. 2, 1, now!
I have a special relationship with Warcraft because my wife plays. We had a baby last year. I was supposed to take a year off of work. And then in November, I get a call to do an audition. So I tell her about it, and she's like, you can't do it. And I'm like, but it's for Warcraft. And she goes, oh, then you really have to do it.
And action.
I've done mostly action films in Hong Kong, and it turns out this is probably the most physical role I've ever done. He has a really kind of smooth evilness to the way he moves, and it is like very serpentine, but it's very difficult to pull off because I'm in a crouched position all the time. So all my muscles are working at once to do something, even if I'm just standing there.
Your clan was weak, and you are a traitor.
Gul'dan is the oldest of all the orcs, so I asked Duncan, why didn't you go for an older actor that would have the gravitas to play that role? He said physically that an older person probably wouldn't be able to handle that role. But I think the greatest thing about it is that a lot of people won't even know that it's me in that character. And that's really, I guess, an actor's ultimate goal, is to try to disappear into that role.
This is a new dawn. The time of the Horde.
Be feared, or be few.
Films I've done before this were not stunt-heavy films. It's like being in a candy shop, all the stuff that we get to do on this. The cut.
When I first read the script, I was like, this is going to be interesting.
We have these amazing fights between humans and orcs with horses and falls and great stunts.
A lot of wire work, which looks brilliant. Getting hoisted, landing on horses. Everything on the show seems at a bigger scale and scope.
You've got massive amounts of armor on. It's physically demanding. You just have to be fit and ready to jump into anything.
It's fun to be able to watch the actor doing the stunts as well, so I really wanted to deliver that.
So you train as much as possible, and the stunt guys on this have been incredible.
That'll just be action. He stands up and bang, the guy will go sword.
Ready, and action.
We're about a quarter of the way through principal photography, and we are in the set for the Elwyn Forest. We've been doing a lot of stunts today in particular.
We had Paula on wires and started to throw her across the set towards a big tree and held her up there.
That that was a fun thing to play. Even though it's not really fun to wear a harness, it's really tight, but then the adrenaline gets to rushing and it's actually really exhilarating.
Action! Just being able to pick up someone and throw them across a room and hold them there, and he can basically crush somebody if he wanted to. He is that powerful.
Getting a magic blast in the chest, going for a little ride, bird on a wire. It's a ratchet. As soon as I hit my end mark, I go yanked back. It's insane. You're weightless for a split second or two, and then it comes to a crashing halt.
This is Black Rock Valley. Quite a lot happens here, as much as it does in the game.
Hammers are flying, swords are coming, so it's just a bloodbath down here, and there's a lot of killing and a lot of action.
Right now we're working on a large battle sequence that we've been shooting over the past week. I think we got it. The trick is you're going to have to literally balance on the end of the sword. 9.5, mate.
Basically, a really big battle scene where Lothar loses his son.
Black Hand, who has already had one conflict with Lothar and lost his hand during it, takes this opportunity to enact a revenge on Lothar by killing Lothar's son in front of him.
It's a pretty great death. Going on a line, Black Hand takes me up and throws me into the magical wall. It's probably going to take a lot of different camera angles to do the stab, the picking up, the throwing, so a lot of work goes into dying.
We got the big clash happening, so you're seeing orcs merge into the battle lines and people going flying because the orcs are so big and strong.
Tom Struthers, who's been coordinating the stunts, is using an awful lot of wire pulls to simulate the power of hits when orcs strike.
We had people flying everywhere, and it was chaos, but it was organised chaos. It was a huge undertaking. Everyone has worked really hard for the same vision, and it helped tell the story of good against evil and who trumps at the end.
It's like any kid's dream, right? It's able to do things like this.